Back in the early 90s, Valiant Comics exploded onto the scene as a challenger to Marvel and DC. Founded by former Marvel editor Jim Shooter, Valiant quickly set itself apart with stories that blended superheroics with sci-fi, mythology, and street-level grit. They weren't just chasing gimmicks or putting out endless crossovers, but at their peak, they were even outselling the biggest titles from the big two, with characters like Exo, Man-O-War, Bloodshot, Harbinger, and Shadowman making real waves. But for every hero who stayed in the spotlight, there were just as many who slowly slipped through the cracks. That's what this video is about. Not the characters who still get relaunches every few years through other publishers, but the ones who have been left behind. Heroes who once stood shoulder to shoulder with Valiant's icons and had their own fascinating stories to tell, but for one reason or another faded into obscurity. Today I'm taking a look back at characters with untapped potential who could easily resonate again if given the chance. Because Valiant's history shows us one thing: the company's best heroes weren't just rivals to Marvel and DC. They were something unique, and some of them deserve another shot at the spotlight. Eternal Warrior, the Punisher of the Ages. Eternal Warrior first appeared in Solar Man of the Atom number 10 in 1992. Created by writer Jim Shooter and artist John Dixon, right in the middle of Valiant Comics' explosive early years. Shooter, having left Marvel after his controversial tenure as editor-in-chief, was determined to build a universe that blended grounded storytelling with high concepts, and the Eternal Warrior was central to that vision. Gilead Onipada wasn't just another costume adventurer. He was envisioned as the living backbone to the Valiant universe, a timeless figure whose immortality tied every era of human history into the present. Alongside his brothers, Ivar the Time Walker and Aram the Immortal Drunkard, Gilead embodied a different face of eternal life. For Aram rejected responsibility and Ivar bent it towards exploration, Gilead accepted the hardest path: eternal battle in defense of Earth itself. His role as a sworn protector of the Geomancer, a line of mystics chosen by the planet to guide humanity, gave him a mythic gravity. He wasn't saving cities or chasing villains of the weak. He was fighting for the soul of the world across centuries. As far as powers go, Gilead wasn't flashy, but that restraint was the point. He didn't fly, shoot energy beams, or wield alien technology. His gift was raw survival, rapid healing, slowed aging, and the strength, skill, and endurance honed by thousands of years of combat. Every scar on his body and every move he made carried the weight of experience. From Rome, from Genghis Khan's empire, from countless wars most of us only know as pages in a textbook. In other words, he was less about spectacle and more about inevitability. Put him in any battlefield in any century, and Gilead could adapt, endure, and win. That made him feel grounded in a way most superheroes weren't. But in practice, that groundedness often left him overshadowed. In Valiant's big Unity crossover, where virtually the entire universe clashed against Mother God, Eternal Warrior was there, right in the thick of it. But he wasn't the one driving the sales or dominating covers. That spotlight usually went to characters like Exo, Man-O-War, who had the bold hook of a barbarian with alien armor, or Rey, who embodied a futuristic national identity. Eternal Warrior, by comparison, became the connective tissue, always present when the Geomancer was in danger, always the man in the middle of history's storm, but rarely the character who defined the story's stakes. He was indispensable, yet strangely easy to overlook. The solo series tried to give him that center stage, and part of what made them memorable was the art. The visuals carried a rugged weight, thick lines, dense shading, and a sense of physicality that emphasized Gilead's body as both weapon and relic. Battle scenes often contrasted ancient and modern weaponry, reminding readers that this was a man out of time who belonged to every battlefield at once. While Valiant didn't always have household name artists Marvel and DC could boast, the Eternal Warrior series leaned into an aesthetic less about sleek superheroism and more about myth. Every panel felt like another chapter in a saga stretching back 5 millennia. That gave his book a distinct identity within Valiant's lineup, one that rewarded readers who were looking for something heavier than capes and quips. And that's where the tragedy and potential of the Eternal Warrior lies. For all his importance, he's been repeatedly forgotten or pushed into the background. When Valiant relaunched in the 2010s, Gilead returned, but again as more of a supporting figure than a headliner, propping up events rather than carrying them. Which is a shame, because his story resonates now more than ever. He's the eternal soldier, the man defined by violence who can never escape it. In that way, he mirrors characters like the Punisher, but with an even crueler twist. Frank Castle is cursed to live in his own war for decades, but Gilead has been fighting for millennia. A modern Eternal Warrior story could lean into that in ways Valiant never quite did. Imagine a series that spans eras. One arc in the trenches of World War I, another in the far future, each carrying the same question: what does it mean to live forever if all you ever do is kill? Done right, it could be both sweeping and personal. An epic about history itself and a quiet meditation on what it means to never lay down your arms. The Eternal Warrior has always been there in the background, a steady hand holding Valiant's mythology together. But the truth is, he deserves more than that. He deserves to stand at the forefront. It's just not a relic of the 90s, but a timeless figure whose burden still speaks powerfully today. Solar, Man of the Atom, the forgotten god of Valiant. Long before he became one of the keystones of the Valiant universe, Solar was born in 1962 at Gold Key Comics. Created by writer Paul S. Newman, editor Matt Murphy, and Bob Fujitani, he was an ambitious creation for the Silver Age. Where Marvel and DC heroes were often spandex-clad adventurers, Dr. Solar was a scientist whose powers came not from an accident alone, but absorbing the terrifying energy of nuclear radiation. From the start, the series had distinctive visual identity. Gold Key's early covers, painted by Richard M. Powers and George Wilson, gave Solar an almost surreal, otherworldly quality. Inside the series broke Silver Age norms. Word balloons were rectangular, panels lacked the traditional thick black borders. For the first 4 issues, Solar didn't even wear a costume. When fans demanded one, the hero was finally clad in a suit, and his skin would turn green whenever he unleashed his abilities. A visceral, visual marker of the living reactor within. This combination of bold, Cold War-era anxieties about atomic power gave readers a hero who's both contemporary and dangerously unpredictable. It wasn't until the 1990s when Jim Shooter licensed the Gold Key heroes for Valiant that Solar truly took on a mythic way. Reimagined as Phil Selesky, a physicist and childhood fan of the old Dr. Solar comics. The Valiant iteration added layers of metafiction. Selesky's lab accident mirrored the adventures he had idolized, transforming him into a being that could manipulate matter and energy at the atomic level. The Alpha and Omega storyline, with art by Barry Windsor Smith and Bob Layton, cemented Solar as a linchpin of the new Valiant universe. His reactor accident birthed many of Valiant's superhumans, and his guilt-driven quest to undo his own mistake shaped the tone of the entire line. Windsor Smith's painterly intensity gave Solar a mythic, almost cosmic presence, while Layton's dynamic layouts conveyed the kinetic, destructive energy of his powers. Solar's abilities were staggering. He wasn't simply strong or invulnerable. He was a living battery, capable of bending energy, matter, and even time to his will. He could transmute elements, unleash radiation, capable of leveling armies, or collapse into a black hole if his control slipped. Unlike Superman, Solar's power carried weighty consequences, a constant reminder that his gifts could just as easily destroy as protect. The radiation that granted him godlike control also eroded his humanity, isolating him from those he sought to save. This made him one of comics' most compelling anti-gods, a man striving to do good while teetering on the brink of annihilation. Even as Solar became the foundation of Valiant's universe, he slowly receded from prominence. After Shooter's departure, the book shifted focus, and though early 90s issues sold hundreds of thousands of copies, the character became more of a crossover catalyst than the star of his own narrative. Later efforts by Acclaim, Dark Horse, and Dynamite attempted revivals, each with their own artistic signatures. Derek Robertson's gritty realism, Patrick Zircher's sleek energy-focused layouts, Dennis Calero's modern line work, but none really recaptured the heavy ambition of Gold Key or the painterly gravitas of Valiant's early run. Today, Solar exists as both legend and curiosity, a hero who once outsold Superman, then helped the launch of one of the most successful independent universes in the 90s, now quietly drifting in the background of comic history, and yet in a world still haunted by fears and technology and humanity's capacity for self-destruction. With the right creative vision, he could once again captivate audiences. Solar's journey from Cold War-era scientist to atomic powerhouse remains a rich foundation for stories that could resonate with modern readers, proving that his mythology still has the power to move beyond nostalgia, becoming a 21st century meditation on cosmic tragedy, human ambition, and the terrifying beauty of atomic energy. The man who began as the Man of Atom would once again feel like a god. Magnus Robot Fighter, humanity's last stand in 4000 AD. Magnus Robot Fighter first appeared in 1963. Created by writer-artist Russ Manning and published again by Gold Key Comics. Set in a dystopian 4000 AD, Magnus was trained to fight rogue robots in a world where humans had become completely dependent on machines. Unlike the colorful, spandex-wearing heroes of the Silver Age, Magnus was a martial artist raised by a self-aware robot named 1A. Trained from infancy to protect humanity, Manning's clear lines and cinematic panel layouts gave Magnus a sleek, futuristic look, while the massive city of North AM, continent-wide megalopolis of towering levels and advanced technology, grounded the stories in a somewhat believable, if speculative, future. The art made the fights feel intense. Robots could be smashed with bone-crunching impact, yet the world still felt vast and full of wonder. It was the 1990s Valiant Comics relaunch that turned Magnus from Silver Age curiosity into a cornerstone of a sprawling future universe. In Valiant's hands, he became more than a fighter of rogue robots. He was a central figure in the mythology of 4000 AD. Jim Shooter and the creative team kept the core idea, a human raised by the self-aware robot 1A to fight mechanical tyranny, but they added a level of storytelling ambition that gave Magnus a mythic weight. The Valiant Magnus was closely tied to the new universe's continuity. The free wills concept made rogue robots sentient, turning Magnus's battles into questions of morality and coexistence. His alliances with the Future Force, the Ghosts, and even the heroes like Ray and Solar made him a key player in conflicts spanning time, space, and entire civilization. These stories went beyond simple fights, exploring rebellion, political intrigue, and existential threats, while keeping the thrill of hand-to-hand combat against powerful mechanical foes. Artistically, the Valiant era added visual sophistication. While Gold Key had Manning's sleek lines and futuristic design, Valiant used artists like Don Perlin, Bob Layton, and later even Steve Ditko. The art showed scale and cinematic action, with towering cityscapes, layered levels of North AM, and detailed fighting choreography. Covers occasionally received painterly touches from Barry Windsor Smith, adding the grandeur that elevated Magnus from pulp hero to legendary figure. This Magnus wasn't just powerful, he was a story engine. The Unity crossover tied him to the birth of the Valiant universe, and later events like the Malev War cemented his role as a leader, strategist, and moral guide. He could hear robot communications, predict mechanical threats, and inspire both human and free will allies. His challenges were as much intellectual and ethical as physical, deciding what to destroy, when to forgive, and when to guide a civilization on the brink of machine domination. Later versions by Acclaim, Dark Horse, and Dynamite experimented with Magnus, but none captured the same scale and ambition that Valiant achieved in that era. He became a model for updating a classic concept, keeping the excitement and spectacle of the original vision. Today, Magnus's Valiant version is perfectly suited for a reinvention. The idea of a human protecting society from sentient machines feels more urgent than ever in a world obsessed with artificial intelligence and automation. Imagine Magnus navigating a near-future North AM, balancing utopia and dystopia, fighting not just rogue robots but corporations, governments, and AI systems that blur the line between sentient and programmed. His martial skills could be paired with strategic thinking, battling machines that adapt and evolve in real time. Magnus could also explore human resilience and morality. He might negotiate with free wills, seeking freedom, or confront AI systems claiming to serve humanity but secretly controlling. He could mentor a new generation of human and robot allies, turning the lone fighter into a leader who embodies human ingenuity and responsibility. Visually, stories could highlight North AM's layered cityscapes, towering structures, and intense combat sequences, recalling his original heroics while emphasizing the scale of his influence in a world dominated by machines. By combining the Valiant era mythic scope with modern fears and possibilities, a new Magnus could be both thrilling action story and a meditation on technology, free will, and what it means to stay human in an artificial world. He has the potential to be not just a superhero of the future, but a cautionary and inspiring figure for today. Ninjak, Valiant's super spy with a sword. When talking about Valiant's catalog of heroes, Ninjak is probably one of the coolest concepts they ever put to page. A British ninja who's part super spy, part mercenary, and part globe-trotting adventurer. Though Marvel and DC had plenty of martial artists and gadget-wielding heroes, none of them quite looked or felt like Ninjak. He first appeared in Bloodshot number 6 in 1993, created by Mark Moretti and Joe Quesada during Valiant's 90s boom, and quickly proved popular enough to headline his own solo series. The core of Ninjak's story revolves around Colin King, the son of a wealthy British operative, raised in privilege but also in isolation. Colin's childhood was marked by a sense of emptiness and resentment. When his parents were killed, Colin turned that grief into discipline. Training across the world, mastered martial arts, espionage, and the art of stealth. What sets him apart isn't that he's just a ninja, it's that he's a ninja filtered through the world of James Bond, complete with high-tech gadgets, exotic missions, and a cold, calculating streak that makes him just as dangerous as the people he's hunting. Across Valiant's original run, Ninjak became one of the company's key players. He wasn't just a lone wolf, he crossed paths with Bloodshot, Eternal Warrior, and the other cornerstones of the universe, often blurring the lines between assassin for hire and reluctant hero. The acclaimed comics relaunch of the late 90s reimagined him as a more gadget-using spy than a mystical ninja, while later Valiant reboots in the 2010s leaned into his dual identity as both Colin King, the suave intelligent agent, and Ninjak, the deadly shadow warrior. Of all these iterations, it's the Valiant version that really stands out, because it gave him layers beyond being a guy in black pajamas with a sword. It showed us the damage of his upbringing, his constant struggle with trust, and his complicated morality. Now, both Ninjak and Batman are wealthy men who suffered childhood trauma, train themselves into human weapons, and rely on gadgets and strategy as much as physical skill. But Ninjak isn't exactly simply a shadow of Batman. He diverges in some key ways. For one, Colin King is far more morally flexible. Where Batman clings to his strict code against killing, Ninjak has no such reservation. If eliminating a target serves his mission, he'll do it without hesitation. Batman is about justice, while Ninjak is more about efficiency. Likewise, Batman is deeply tied to Gotham, being the symbol for one specific city, while Ninjak is a global figure, moving from Tokyo to London to the juggles of South America. He isn't fighting for a place, he's fighting to complete missions that ripple across nations. Even in personality, Ninjak is different. Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is the truth. But for Colin King, the lines blur. He plays the role of a charming Bond-like agent in public, but he doesn't have a crusade to anchor him. Just a job, a mission, or sometimes survival. That makes him colder, more detached, and at times less trustworthy. Ninjak doesn't want to inspire anyone, he just wants to win. Here's the thing, Ninjak hasn't been entirely forgotten. He's had several modern series, most recently in 2021, but none of them have really stuck in the way that his 1990 series did. And that's a shame, because the character has everything you need for success today. Spy thrillers and assassin-driven stories are still massively popular, from John Wick to Mission Impossible to James Bond, and Ninjak could slot perfectly into that space with his mix of martial arts, action, and high-tech espionage. Imagine a modern Valiant relaunch that really leaned into Ninjak's unique position, not just as another costume hero, but as a man straddling the world of international espionage and ancient martial arts traditions. A series could explore Colin King navigating global conspiracies, clashing with mystical assassins, or even dealing with the fallout of past betrayals. With the right creative team, Ninjak could easily stand out in today's crowded comics landscape. Of All's incarnation, the Valiant version of Ninjak, the damaged, complicated super spy who walks the line between loyalty and self-interest, is the one worth bringing back. It gave him a voice, a story, and a place in a shared universe that felt vital. Done right, Ninjak could be more than just another 90s relic. He could be one of the smartest, sleekest, and deadliest heroes on the stands today. Rei, the spirit guardian of Japan. Rei wasn't just another costume hero thrown onto the page. He was one of the very first original characters Valiant ever created back in 1991. And to be honest, he's probably my favorite Valiant character. He started out humbly, tucked away in a flipbook backup inside Magnus the Robot Fighter, but the response was strong enough that he quickly spun off into his own series. For Valiant, Rei represented the first step in building an interconnected universe stretched across space and into the far future. In the original continuity, Rei lived in the 41st century, where Japan had evolved into what was called the Host, a massive technological construct that housed 50 billion people. This wasn't just a city, but a nation fused with machinery, overseen by benevolent yet controlling artificial intelligence, known as Grandmother. To enforce her rule, Grandmother created Rei, a living guardian whose power came from the legendary blood of heroes, the nanite bloodline passed down from Bloodshot himself. Rei was the protector and a symbol, a mantle passed from father to son through generations, serving not just as Japan's defender, but as a conscience. The stories told with him weren't about the standard superhero formula of battling random villains. They wrestled with questions of autonomy and legacy. Was Japan better off under Grandmother's control, or was it time for independence? Was Rei a savior, or just another tool of the system? And what does it mean to inherit a role you didn't choose? These themes gave Rei's comics a weight that stood apart from many superhero titles of the time. When Valiant rebooted in 2012, Rei was imagined for a new generation. Now Japan had become New Japan, a floating satellite orbiting Earth and ruled by a new AI known as Father. This Rei, the 10th to bear the mantle, was seen as little more than a myth, a spirit guardian who appeared only when order needed to be restored. But once he discovered the Father's utopia was built on lies, Rei broke free and became something new, a cybernetic Ronin rebelling against the very system that had created him. This version leaned even harder into science fiction and cyberpunk, with Clayton Crane's surreal digital art making Rei's world feel alien and alive. This series fed directly into Valiant's big event, 4001 AD, which positioned Rei as a central figure in humanity's far future destiny. Even with all this ambition, Ray eventually slipped through the cracks. Part of the reason is that he was always tied to a larger mythology that Valiant couldn't fully sustain. When the company lost the rights to Magnus the Robot Fighter, Solar the Man of the Atom, the wider framework of the 41st century future timeline collapsed, leaving Ray as a fragment of the story that no longer fully existed. Even if his bold 2014 revival fizzled just after 16 issues. Once meant to be the cornerstone of Valiant's future, Ray today is mostly remembered only by longtime fans. He went from flagship symbol to ghost, a character built to embody legacy, now struggling to hold on to his own. Which is a real shame, because Ray feels like a character built for today's world. His fusion of Japanese folklore, cyberpunk dystopia, and generational legacy stands out in today's market, where manga-inspired comics are thriving, and audiences are hungry for thoughtful sci-fi in the vein of Blade Runner or Cyberpunk 2077. He's a character that could thrive if Valiant leaned into the idea of him as both warrior and a myth. A ghost in the machine, navigating a world where AI isn't just oppressive but worshipped like a god. Even without Magnus or Solar at his side, Ray could once again serve as the bridge between the present and the far future of the Valiant universe. He was created to be a spirit that would never fade, and with the right push, Ray could prove that some ghosts don't stay forgotten. They come back when the world needs them most. Valiant's history is full of peaks and valleys. Massive early success, bold reinventions, and periods of silence where entire characters seem to vanish. But if there's one thing that becomes clear when looking back, it's that so many of these so-called forgotten heroes weren't just disposable 90s experiments. They had strong concepts, compelling backstories, and in many cases, a uniqueness that set them apart from what Marvel and DC were doing at the time. And that's why they deserve another look today. In a comic landscape that sometimes feels like it's just recycling the same ideas over and over, Valiant's forgotten heroes could offer something fresh. Their stories still resonate, their archetypes are timeless, and with the right creative push, it could easily matter again. Because if Valiant proved anything back in the 90s, it's that great ideas don't just belong to Marvel or DC. They can come from anywhere. And maybe, just maybe, it's time for these heroes to rise again. Once again, I want to say thank you to anyone who has supported the channel and continues to support it. I'm still amazed by all the growth that we have seen so far. If you like this video, why not give it a like? Or if you want some more other videos, I've got all kinds on my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.